The Awakening. The Helios station hung like a gleaming silver jewel against the black velvet of space, its rotating rings catching the light of the distant star. Within its sterile corridors, 12-year-old Mira Chen moved with purpose, her small frame navigating the crowds of diverse alien species with practiced ease. Unlike most humans who kept their heads down, Mira walked with confidence beyond her years. "Excuse me, Senior Architect Vaxler," she called out, catching up to the tall, crystalline being whose body refracted light into dazzling patterns. "I completed the quantum alignment calculations you assigned." The Protean architect turned slowly, facets clicking as they rearranged to focus on the human child. "Already. That was meant to occupy you for at least 3 cycles. A hint of suspicion colored the melodic tones. Mira offered the data pad with a polite smile. "I found a more efficient approach by integrating the Torvald method with some old Earth mathematics." Vaxler's crystalline fingers clinked against the pad as they reviewed her work, more facets clicking into a configuration Mira recognized as surprise. "This is unexpected. Your solution is elegant." The being paused. Too elegant, perhaps. Mira had grown accustomed to such reactions. Humans were tolerated in the galactic hegemony. Barely. Earth had been discovered only 40 years ago, making humanity the newest species in an interstellar community thousands of years old. While humans were allowed to live on hegemony stations and settlements, they were never fully trusted. Their rapid adaptability and technological advancement rate made the older species uneasy. "Thank you for the opportunity, Senior Architect," Mira said, maintaining her composure despite the undercurrent of suspicion. "May I be dismissed for my personal study time?" Vaxler granted permission with a crystalline chime, and Mira departed, feeling the architect's gaze follow her down the corridor. She didn't head to the human residential sector, but instead made her way to the less-traveled maintenance levels of the station. Her parents, both xenobiologists, were attending a conference on the Protean homeworld, leaving her with more freedom than usual. The lower levels were dimly lit, with exposed conduits and machinery humming in the background. Mira moved with purpose toward a section she had discovered 3 weeks ago, a sealed corridor that appeared on no station schematics she could access. Each day, she worked a little more on bypassing the ancient lock, careful to leave no trace of her tampering. Today, something felt different. As she approached the hidden door, the air seemed to vibrate with an energy she couldn't explain. When her fingers touched the control panel, blue light flickered beneath her skin. So briefly she thought she'd imagined it. The door slid open. Inside lay a small, circular chamber with walls inscribed with patterns that seemed to shift if she looked at them too long. In the center floated a metallic sphere, approximately 30 centimeters in diameter, hovering above a pedestal without visible means of support. "That's not hegemony tech," she whispered to herself, recognizing none of the design principles from her extensive studies. Drawing closer, she noticed the sphere wasn't perfectly smooth. Its surface was covered in intricate engravings that reminded her strangely of DNA helixes and mathematical equations simultaneously. Something compelled her to reach out. The moment her fingers made contact with the cool metal, the sphere pulsed with blue light, the same shade that had momentarily coursed through her veins. The sphere rose higher, spinning slowly as symbols across its surface began to glow. Throughout Helios Station, systems faltered. Lights dimmed momentarily. Gravity fluctuated. Communication arrays reset themselves. Mira stood transfixed as information flooded her mind. Star maps, coordinates, names in a language she somehow understood despite never hearing it before. Visions of massive ships hidden beneath Earth's oceans, deserts, and ice caps. Knowledge of a history humanity had forgotten, or had been made to forget. The flood of information abruptly halted as the chamber door slammed open. Hegemony security forces in sleek black armor poured in, weapons raised. Behind them stood High Commander Ziv Vesal, the station's Valoran administrator, his scaled face contorted in an expression Mira recognized as fear. "Containment Protocol Omega," he ordered, his guttural voice echoing in the small chamber. "Secure the artifact and the human." "What's happening?" Mira asked as armored hands seized her shoulders. "I didn't do anything wrong." The High Commander ignored her, his attention fixed on the sphere, which continued to pulse rhythmically. "How much did it show you?" he demanded, face inches from hers. "I don't understand." "It activated for you," he hissed. "The progenitor key activated for a human child." "What did you see?" Before Mira could answer, the sphere emitted a high-pitched tone. The security officers stepped back involuntarily as the tone grew louder. High Commander Zivixol barked orders into his communicator, but his words were drowned out by the sound. The sphere suddenly projected a holographic galaxy, with one arm highlighted in pulsing blue. A single world, Earth, shone brightest of all. "Protocol breach," the High Commander snarled. "Take the human to isolation immediately. Full communication blackout. No one speaks of this." As the guards dragged Mira away, she caught one last glimpse of the sphere collapsing in on itself, as though its purpose had been fulfilled. Hours passed in a featureless detention cell. Then days. Mira's questions went unanswered, her demands to contact her parents ignored. On the fourth day, the High Commander himself entered her cell, accompanied by a being she had never seen before. Tall, with pale, almost translucent skin and eyes entirely black. "The Council has made its decision," Zivixel announced without preamble. "What council? What decision?" Mira demanded, fear finally breaking through her composure. "I have rights under the Sentient Protection Accord. You have activated something that should have remained dormant." The unknown being interrupted, its voice oddly melodic despite the coldness behind it. "Something hidden for reasons beyond your comprehension. The knowledge you accessed cannot be allowed to spread," Zivixol continued. "The Council has determined that containment failure is unacceptable." Understanding dawned on Mira with terrible clarity. "You're going to kill me for touching something I didn't know was forbidden." Neither denied it. The pale beam produced a small device from within its flowing robes. "My parents will know what happened," Mira warned, backing against the wall. "Earth will demand answers." "Your parents will be informed of a tragic accident," Zivixol stated flatly. "As for Earth, they remain ignorant of their true history. That ignorance is necessary for galactic stability." As the pale being approached, Mira felt a strange calm replace her fear. The blue light returned, coursing through her veins more visibly now. Knowledge from the sphere crystallized in her mind, and she understood what was happening, what had always been meant to happen. "You've made a mistake," she said with sudden certainty. "The key wasn't meant to be found. It was meant to be activated if certain conditions were met." She looked directly at the High Commander. "You've just fulfilled those conditions." The device touched her forehead, and Mira Chen ceased to exist, but not before a signal, imperceptible to hegemony sensors, had already begun its journey toward Earth. 2 weeks later, Dr. James and Dr. Lin Chen were summoned to the station administrator's office. Their conference had been extended unexpectedly, communications conveniently disrupted. They were presented with a small, ornate box containing their daughter's favorite pendant and a lock of her hair. A tragic system malfunction in the education sector, High Commander Zivixol explained, his rehearsed sympathy failing to reach his eyes. Sudden decompression. Recovery was limited. The hegemony extends its deepest condolences and standard compensation. Lynn collapsed into her husband's arms while James stared at the box, numb with shock and grief. Neither noticed the almost imperceptible relief in the administrator's posture when they asked no further questions. As their transport ship carried them back to Earth, the small box clutched in Lynn's hands, something extraordinary was happening on their homeworld. In a secure facility beneath the Mariana Trench, automated systems that had lain dormant for millennia suddenly activated. Climate-controlled chambers housing ancient technology hummed to life as preservation fields deactivated one by one. Similar awakenings occurred beneath the Antarctic ice sheet, the Sahara Desert, and mountain ranges across the planet. In a modest cabin in the Colorado mountains, a man who appeared no older than 40 despite his actual age being well over a century received an alert on a device no Earth-based technology could detect. Admiral Marcus Thorne, a title long unused, stared at the pulsing blue light with a mixture of anticipation and regret. "So it's begun," he murmured, moving to a wall that slid aside at his touch, revealing a room filled with technology incompatible with humanity's supposed development timeline. "I had hoped we'd have more time." A holographic display activated, showing the face of a woman with the timeless features of someone who had lived far beyond a normal human lifespan. "The signal has been confirmed, Admiral," she reported. "The caretaker protocol has been activated." "Circumstances?" Thorne asked, though he already suspected the answer. "A key bearer was terminated by hegemony authorities. Female, age 12, name Mira Chen." Thorne closed his eyes briefly. "They killed a child." "Of course they did." He straightened, authority settling onto his shoulders like a familiar weight. "Activate all sleeper agents. Priority 1 is locating all remaining key bearers before the hegemony realizes what's happening." "And the fleet, sir?" "Begin revival sequences. Minimal power signatures only, until we're ready." He looked at the star chart materializing above his desk, countless points of light representing the vast galactic hegemony that believed Earth to be just another primitive world of no particular importance. "How long before they realize what they've done?" the woman asked. "Not long enough for them to prepare," Thorne replied grimly, "but more than long enough for them to regret it." Across Earth, individuals who had lived ordinary lives suddenly found themselves experiencing vivid dreams of starships and cosmic battles. Some woke with inexplicable knowledge, others with abilities that defied conventional science. Most concerning to the few hegemony observers stationed on Earth were the increasing reports of strange blue lights seen in remote locations, lights that their instruments inexplicably failed to detect. In the depths of space, at the edge of the solar system, automated sentinels that had maintained their lonely vigil for thousands of years began broadcasting a signal on frequencies the hegemony had long forgotten. The message was simple, 5 words that would soon send shockwaves through the centers of galactic power. "The progenitors are awakening again." In the hegemony's central administration complex on Valora Prime, an emergency session of the High Council convened. Beings representing the 27 most powerful species sat in tense silence as High Commander Zivxol's report concluded. "The containment protocols failed," the aged Procyon archivate stated, crystal facets darkening with concern. "The key activated for a human child." "A human." "Impossible," hissed a serpentine saurian representative. "The safety measures were absolute. The human should have no genetic memory of the progenitor era." Nevertheless, the Veloran High Speaker interjected, "We have detected multiple activation signatures from Sol II. The dormant technology is awakening." "Then we must act immediately," the Saurian insisted. "Quarantine the entire system. If necessary, sterilize the planet before the full awakening occurs." Silence fell as the implications settled over the assembly. Finally, the oldest among them, a being so ancient its species had evolved beyond physical form, spoke with quiet certainty. "It is too late for such measures. We killed a keybearer. The protocols are clear. The sleepers will already be awakening." A sensation of profound dread emanated from the energy being. "We have made the one mistake we swore never to make. We have given the progenitors reason to return." As the council descended into panicked debate on Earth, Admiral Thorne watched the first of the ancient fleet vessels rise from beneath the Pacific Ocean, water cascading from its massive hull as it took to the skies for the first time in 50,000 years. The hegemony's greatest mistake was about to become Earth's moment of awakening. The reckoning. The hegemony battlecruiser Inevitable Justice dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Sol system, leading a fleet of 30 vessels, the largest military deployment that hegemony had authorized in over 3 centuries. On the command deck, Fleet Commander Kazvor of the Velaran Imperium studied the tactical display with narrowed reptilian eyes. "Status report," he demanded, taloned fingers tapping impatiently on his command chair. "All ships present and accounted for, Commander," his executive officer reported. "We are maintaining position at safe distance as ordered. Preliminary scans show anomalies." "Define anomalies," Kazvor growled. The science officer, a Protean whose crystalline form shimmered nervously, manipulated the holographic controls. "Energy signatures unlike anything in our database, sir. And there appears to be significant activity on the planet's moon that wasn't present in our last survey." Kazvor hissed softly. The council had been deliberating for weeks after the incident with the human child. Some argued for immediate intervention, others for continued observation. In the end, the discovery of massive energy signatures emerging from Earth had forced their hand. The decision was made. A show of overwhelming force to remind the humans of their place in the galactic order. "Launch reconnaissance drones," he ordered. "Full spectrum analysis. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with before we approach any closer." The drones accelerated toward the inner system, their advanced stealth systems making them virtually undetectable to what the hegemony believed was Earth's primitive technology. Kazvor settled back to wait for their reports, confident in the hegemony's overwhelming technological advantage. His confidence lasted precisely 18 minutes. "Commander," the sensor operator's voice rose in alarm. "The drones, they're gone." "Explain," Kazvor demanded, straightening in his chair. One moment they were transmitting, the next, nothing. No debris, no energy discharge. They simply disappeared. Before Kazvor could respond, the communications officer jerked upright. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's directed specifically to you, sir." "That's impossible," Kazvor said, genuine confusion replacing his irritation. "They shouldn't be able to detect our presence, let alone identify our command structure." "Nevertheless, sir, they're requesting you by name and rank." After a moment's hesitation, Kazvor nodded curtly. "Put it through." The main view screen flickered, and the image of a human appeared, male with silver-streaked dark hair and the bearing of a military officer. His uniform was unfamiliar, midnight blue with silver insignia that matched no Earth military the hegemony had documented. "Fleet Commander Kazvor," the human said, his tone pleasant, but with unmistakable steel beneath. "I am Admiral Marcus Thorne of the Terran Progenitor Fleet. Your reconnaissance drones have been intercepted and disabled as a precautionary measure. They will be returned to you intact once our business is concluded." Kazvor's scales lifted slightly in shock. "How did you detect your fleet? Identify you personally?" Thorne smiled thinly. "The same way we know that the High Council has sent you to assess the situation following the murder of one of our keybearers, a child named Mira Chen." Silence fell over the command deck. None of the officers had been briefed on the details of their mission, only that they were to conduct a show of force in response to unusual activity on Earth. "I don't know what you're talking about," Kazvor replied carefully. "We are conducting a routine patrol." "Let's dispense with the pretense, Commander," Thorne interrupted, his smile vanishing. "Your council killed a child to protect a secret that was never yours to keep. In doing so, they triggered the very protocols they sought to prevent. The progenitor fleet is awakening, and Earth remembers what was taken from us." As if on cue, the tactical display erupted with new contacts. Massive vessels emerging from Earth's oceans, from beneath its deserts, from camouflaged hangars in its mountain ranges. Within moments, over 100 ships of unknown configuration had taken position in Earth orbit. "Impossible," the tactical officer whispered. "Our intelligence indicated the humans had only achieved rudimentary spaceflight capabilities." "Your intelligence," Admiral Thorne said, evidently able to hear the officer's remark, "was precisely what we wanted you to have. We've maintained that fiction for generations while we recovered from the Great Betrayal." Kazvor fought to maintain his composure. What are your intentions, Admiral Thorne? If this is a declaration of war. Had we wanted war, Thorne replied evenly, your fleet would already be destroyed. No, Commander. What we want is acknowledgement and restoration. The hegemony will recognize Earth's sovereignty and our rightful place as equals. The Council will admit the truth about our shared history to the galactic community. And if we refuse, Thorne's expression hardened, then we will simply take what is ours, beginning with the return of all humans currently living under hegemony jurisdiction. On Earth, events were unfolding with swift precision. In the Chen household, Lynn sat staring vacantly at a holographic image of her daughter, while James worked listlessly in his study. Their grief had hollowed them, leaving only empty shells where vibrant scientists had once been. The doorbell chimed. James opened the door to find a woman in her 30s with lieutenant's insignia on a uniform he didn't recognize. Dr. Chen, she said with formal respect. My name is Lieutenant Commander Nakamura. I represent Admiral Thorne of the Terran Progenitor Fleet. May I come in? James blinked in confusion. I'm sorry, the what fleet? Is this some kind of joke? No, sir. I understand your confusion, but what I have to tell you concerns your daughter, Mira. The mention of his daughter's name broke through James' apathy. He stepped aside wordlessly, leading the visitor to where Lynn sat. Mrs. Chen, Nakamura greeted with a respectful nod. I know this will be difficult to hear, but your daughter did not die in an accident. She was deliberately killed by the galactic hegemony because she activated an ancient artifact, an artifact that recognized her genetic signature. Lynn's head snapped up, grief momentarily replaced by shock. What are you talking about? Your daughter was what we call a key-bearer, a human carrying specific genetic markers that connect her to Earth's true history, a history that was hidden from us after the Great Betrayal 50,000 years ago. James shook his head in disbelief. This is absurd. 50,000 years ago, humans were primitive hunter-gatherers. That's what we were meant to believe, Nakamura replied, producing a small device that projected a holographic display. The truth is far more complex. Earth was once the center of an interstellar civilization, the progenitors. We were technologically advanced beyond anything the current hegemony can imagine. We explored, we built, we helped younger species achieve their potential. The hologram showed images of vast cities, advanced spacecraft, and humans working alongside alien species in peaceful cooperation. Then came the betrayal. Nakamura continued. A coalition of species we had uplifted decided they no longer wished to live in our shadow. They attacked without warning, targeting our major population centers first. Billions died in the first hours. Lynn and James watched in horrified fascination as the hologram depicted the devastation. But we had contingency plans, Nakamura explained. The surviving leadership enacted the dormancy protocol. Our most advanced technology was hidden in secure locations around the planet. Selected individuals, the ancestors of today's key-bearers, were encoded with genetic memories that would activate under specific circumstances. Then a controlled bioweapon was released. A bioweapon? James asked, appalled. It didn't kill, Nakamura clarified. It rewrote. It selectively erased technological knowledge from our species' collective memory, effectively resetting human civilization to a pre-industrial state. The plan was to remain dormant until the danger had passed, then gradually reawaken our true potential. And Mira was one of these key-bearers. Lynn asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, she carried the genetic sequence that allowed her to interface with progenitor technology. When she activated the artifact on Helios Station, she set in motion the awakening protocols, a fail-safe designed to protect Earth if the hegemony ever discovered our true nature. And they killed her for it, James said, his grief turning to cold anger. Yes, and in doing so, they fulfilled the final condition for full awakening. All across Earth, hidden facilities are activating. People with the right genetic markers are experiencing memories and abilities they never knew they had. Nakamura's device projected a new image, a massive vessel rising from the Pacific Ocean, water cascading from its gleaming hull. "The fleet is rising, Dr. Chen. And we need people with your expertise. More importantly," she added gently, "we can offer you something no one else can: justice for your daughter." Across the planet, similar conversations were taking place. Scientists, engineers, military personnel, key individuals with specialized knowledge or genetic markers were being contacted and brought into the rapidly expanding progenitor restoration. Deep beneath the Antarctic ice, the largest of the hidden complexes had transformed into a hive of activity. Thousands of awakened sleeper agents and newly recruited personnel worked to bring ancient systems online. In a circular chamber at the heart of the facility, Admiral Thorne stood before a council of 12, men and women of various ethnicities, all showing the same timeless quality he possessed. "The hegemony fleet remains at the edge of the system," he reported. "Their commander has relayed our demands to the High Council." "And the key-bearers?" asked Elder Jiang, her eyes showing the wisdom of centuries despite her youthful appearance. 70% activated and secured," Thorne replied. "The remaining 30% are being located and contacted as we speak. The Chen girls' parents have agreed to join us." "It was always the most likely outcome," Elder Xanthus remarked, his dark features solemn. "The hegemony's fear would eventually lead them to a fatal error." "What of the fleet?" asked Elder Okonkwo. "Is it combat ready?" "The primary vessels are at 90% operational capacity," Thorne confirmed. "The secondary fleet will require another week of preparation. Our defensive capabilities, however, are fully online. The Sol system is now the most heavily defended territory in the sector." "And the genetic restoration program?" Elder Jiang inquired. "Proceeding as planned. The first wave of volunteers has completed the process successfully. Their ancestral memories are integrating without complications." The chamber fell silent as each elder contemplated the implications. After 50,000 years of enforced dormancy, humanity was reclaiming its heritage and its power. "We should extend an invitation to the High Council," Elder Jiang suggested finally. "Let them come here, to Earth. Let them see what they tried to keep buried." In deep space, aboard the hegemony diplomatic vessel Concordant Truth, the highest representatives of the 27 founding species traveled toward Earth with growing trepidation. The reports from the observation fleet strained credulity. A planet thought to be marginally space-capable had suddenly revealed technology surpassing even the hegemony's most advanced developments. In the private chambers of the High Speaker, the ancient energy being communed with the ship's secured archives, accessing records so old that most council members didn't know they existed. The truth had been carefully hidden for 50 millennia. How the coalition of young species had united against their benefactors, how they had struck without warning, how they had rewritten history to cast themselves as the founders of galactic civilization rather than its usurpers. And now that truth was about to be exposed. As Earth grew larger in the viewports, High Speaker Zenith faced an uncomfortable reality. The carefully constructed narrative that had sustained the hegemony for thousands of generations was unraveling because of a single irreversible mistake. They had killed a human child without understanding what she represented. The diplomatic vessel entered Earth orbit, escorted by ships of a design no living being had seen for 50,000 years. As they docked with the massive station that had seemingly materialized in lunar orbit overnight, the High Speaker prepared to face the consequences of history's greatest theft. The Terran progenitor delegation awaited them in a vast chamber whose transparent floor revealed Earth in all its blue-green glory below. Admiral Thorne stood at the center, flanked by the elders and key military personnel. Among them stood Lin and James Chen, their faces impassive as they watched the procession of alien dignitaries enter. When the High Speaker's energy form glided forward, Lin stepped forward, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "Where is High Commander Zivvexel?" she demanded. "I want to look into the eyes of the being who murdered my daughter." An uncomfortable silence fell over the hegemony delegation. Finally, a Velaran stepped forward, scales dulled with age and stress. "I am Zivux-All," he acknowledged, meeting her gaze steadily. "I gave the order that ended your child's life. I did so believing it necessary for galactic stability." "You did so out of fear," Admiral Thorne corrected coldly. Fear of what her awakening represented. The High Speaker moved forward, its energy form pulsing with complex emotions. "You must understand, we believe the progenitor era ended for good reason. The records passed down to us spoke of tyrants who dominated the younger races, who demanded tribute and obedience. Records written by those who betrayed us," Elder Jang replied. "The victors always write history to justify their actions. We have accessed our own records," Thorne added. "The true history preserved in the genetic memory of our key-bearers and in data vaults hidden beneath our world. We know exactly what happened 50,000 years ago, how the coalition of species we had uplifted and guided turned against us in a coordinated strike." Lin Chen never took her eyes off Zivux-All. "My daughter was 12 years old. She loved learning. She wanted to understand the universe, and you killed her because she accidentally discovered a truth you wanted to keep hidden. What do you want from us?" the High Speaker asked, its voice resonating with genuine concern. "Revenge. War. Justice," Thorne answered simply. "Acknowledgement of the truth. Restoration of our rightful place in the galaxy, and guarantees that no human will ever again be harmed for the crime of remembering who we once were." The negotiations lasted for days. The hegemony representatives moved from denial to bargaining to reluctant acceptance as evidence of Earth's claims became impossible to ignore. The genetic memory archives were opened, showing the unaltered history of the galaxy, how humans had been the first to achieve interstellar travel, how they had found and guided dozens of younger species, how they had built the foundations upon which the hegemony now stood. Most damning were the records of the betrayal itself, the carefully planned genocide that had reduced the human population from 30 billion, spread across hundreds of worlds, to barely 1 million survivors on Earth, subjected to forced technological regression. On the final day, the Concordat of Restoration was signed. Earth would rejoin galactic society, not as a minor newcomer, but as a founding power. The truth would be released to all hegemony worlds gradually, to prevent societal collapse, and High Commander Zivux-All would stand trial for the murder of Mira Chen. As the ceremony concluded, Dr. Lin Chen approached Admiral Thorne, her expression troubled. "Will this bring her back?" she asked quietly. "All this power, all this technology, can any of it return my daughter to me?" Thorne's expression softened with genuine regret. "No, Dr. Chen. Even we have not conquered death completely. But there is something I can show you." He led the Chens to a secure section of the lunar facility. Inside a specially prepared chamber stood a holographic projection of extraordinary detail and complexity. Mira Chen, exactly as she had been, smiling with the curiosity and intelligence that had defined her life. Before her physical body died, the artifact on Helios Station did more than just activate her genetic memories. Thorne explained gently. It scanned and preserved her complete neural pattern, her memories, her personality, everything that made her who she was. The hologram turned toward them, recognition lighting up her features. "Mom. Dad? It's not truly her," Thorne cautioned as the parents stood frozen in shock. "But it's the closest we can come. In time, as our technology continues to advance, there may be other possibilities." Lin approached the hologram slowly, hand outstretched. Though her fingers passed through the image, the projection responded as Mira would have, with a smile that crinkled the corners of her eyes. "You look sad, Mom," the hologram said. "Did something happen?" James joined his wife, eyes brimming with tears. "Yes, sweetheart, something happened. But we're going to be okay now. All of us." From the observation deck overlooking Earth, High Speaker Zenith watched the hegemony delegation depart. Admiral Thorne joined the energy being, standing in contemplative silence as the diplomatic vessel accelerated toward the jump point. You understand this changes everything, Zenith said finally. The power balance that has existed for 50 millennia is over. It never should have existed in the first place, Thorn replied without rancor. It was built on genocide and lies. Many will resist the new order. They will adapt, or they will be left behind. Thorn turned to face the ancient being. We are not seeking revenge for what was done to us. If we were, your coalition worlds would already be ash. We want restoration, not retribution. And if restoration is not enough for all of your people, the memories you have awakened include the trauma of betrayal. Thorn smiled grimly. Then those who cannot move beyond vengeance will need to be guided, just as we once guided your ancestors. That is the responsibility that comes with being progenitors. As the hegemony vessel disappeared in a flash of FTL energy, Thorn turned his gaze back to Earth. Beautiful, resilient Earth, finally awakening to its true potential after 50,000 years of enforced slumber. The death of one child had set in motion the rebirth of humanity's oldest legacy. The galaxy would never be the same again. And somewhere, beyond the confines of matter and energy, Mira Chen watched as the future she had inadvertently triggered unfolded across the stars. A future where humanity reclaimed its place not as conquerors, but as the teachers and guides they had always been meant to be.